Thank you very much. It's always wonderful to be here at the Mumbai Collective. I was here, I think, at the first one, and now I'm here again. And thank you very much for the organizers for such a wonderful program that they have organized. The chair today, Dr. Ashok Dhable, and Supriya Sule, a very dear friend, and one of the foremost forthcoming politicians in the country. I mean, I shouldn't say forthcoming because she already is one. so, but then that is the future of Indian politics, and the role that she's playing. But I mean, she's been. I mean, I don't deserve the flattery that she's given me, but about that, all that. But that all that apart, because we are discussing chronology समझिए. अब इस chronology को जैसे डॉक्टर दबले said कौन सी chronology समझा? Chronology की बात छोड़िए, वहाँ पे आ जाएंगे हम थोड़ी देर में. लेकिन what is happening in the country? You heard from Supriya some aspects of it. We had the longest budget speech ever, I think, without anything to do with the budget. There's absolutely nothing. We don't know how much the government has earned, what is its revenue, what is its expenditures, where it's going to go. Nothing of that is known, which is what the budget is supposed to be. Well, anyway, that apart. Supriya has given the minister 10 and 2 for the budget. Chidambaram was asked, on a scale of 10, what would you give? His answer was, I thought, rather classic. He said, 10 has 2 digits. It's your pick. You can pick either one of them. I mean, what is happening to our economy today? We have the highest unemployment levels in the last 50 years. Your farmers are continuing to commit distress suicides. Your factories are shutting down. Layoffs are taking place. And the misery of the people. And for once in my life, I was brought up in Hyderabad. And we are used to eating Hyderabadi biryani. This time when I went to Hyderabad on the way to Gulbarga for a huge big rally, so we ordered biryani, and suddenly I was surprised to find biryani without any onions in it. I said, क्या हो गया बिना प्याज के बिरयानी कैसे खाए भाई? तो बोलता है साहब 170 रुपए है किलो. ये बिरयानी से महंगा प्याज हो गया. तो आप खरीदने में. I mean, not one concern about all these troubles that the people are facing. Big struggles are going on. The working class has been on a nationwide strike. The Grameen Bandh, of which Ashok was one of the organizers, coincided with it. The students went on strike in many universities on that day. But absolutely, it just doesn't concern this government at all. And in the last 7 months, what is the chronology that they brought? In the last 7 months since their return, the only agenda has been an agenda to divide our people, divide our country, and to spread what Supriya was saying, an atmosphere of hate and violence all across the country, on one pretext or the other. First session of Parliament, Article 370 abrogation. J&K reduced into 2 union territories, and with a sleight of hand, and very, very surreptitiously, replacing the will of an elected state assembly with the will of the governor appointed by the centre, because the state assembly was dissolved. And therefore used that as the excuse. Anyway, the Honorable Supreme Court is considering the matter, and we know how they've been considering matters in the recent past. So what will come out of it, we don't really know. But anyway, that was the first agenda that created a tremendous division and alienation, not only among the Kashmiris, but also apprehensions about the largest minority, the religious minority that lives in our country. And then came the Ayodhya verdict. The Supreme Court delivered the verdict. But in our opinion, it did not deliver justice. Those who, in the same judgment, it talks of saying it's a criminal act for those who went and put up the idols there in 1949. Now there are any number of anomalies that are there in that verdict. But anyway, all the political parties had come to an agreement saying that if there's no mutually negotiated settlement between the different the parties, then we'll all accept the court verdict. So be it. So that's what it is. And then after that comes the CAA, NRC, NPR. Now, what is the meaning of this? Whenever we say an objection to it, today at Shaheen Bagh in Delhi, there's palpable tension. some thousands, tens of thousands of people have gathered there in solidarity because the Hindu Sena gave a call that we are going to violently remove the protest. So in order to defend the Shaheen Bagh protesters, I mean, people have just landed up from all over the place, and mostly youngsters. And it's very redeeming factor. I mean, I'm so pleasantly surprised. It's like our generation that fought the emergency. And unfortunately, many of you were castigated by people of my age group, not me, but of my age group, saying that your only life is your, smartphone and your cyberspace, and you're not bothered about anything else. And what nonsense, when you just look at anywhere in the country today, when more than 200 university campuses have come out spontaneously in outrage against the CAA. Why? Because like Supriya said, you've all been born in a free country which had, yes, there are many faults, many limitations, many things that have to change, and we are all struggling for that better, change for the better. But it nevertheless was a country which had certain values of secular democracy. Now today you find that under assault. Whenever you take an objection to the CAA, you say you are anti-national. And you are speaking the language of Pakistan. Pakistan has been the obsession with our Prime Minister. And like one student in a cartoon, and I think it's very interesting, I'm sure some of you must have seen it. A student fails in an examination. So the father blames him, saying, "What have you done? Why you failed?" He said, "No, Pakistan is the cause." Pakistan failed because of Pakistan. So, Pakistan, anyway, okay, we are all Pakistanis, we are all anti-national. We got to tell them, all of us together must tell these, people who are now in the government, that look here, every religion may have its holy book. Some religions may have more than one holy book, like Hindus have. But as far as an Indian patriot is concerned, there's only one holy book, and that is the Constitution of India. And when I stand up to defend the Constitution, it is an expression of my patriotism. It's not an anti-national act, but a supremely national act in protecting the secular democratic foundations of modern India as laid down in the Constitution. And that is why opposing CAA is why. Because for the first time it violates the Constitution by linking religion with granting of citizenship. And that is the supreme violation. The rest of the chronology follows. And that is the NRC and PR. The Prime Minister thundered saying, "Jab se main Pradhan Mantri bana, NRC ke baare mein koi charcha nahi hui." कमाल है सर मतलब क्या बताया आपको My Rajya Sabha में था, Supriya was also there, I think. No, you were there. Huh? So 3 months after he became the Prime Minister, there was a question raised in the Rajya Sabha on the NPR then, saying, what is this NPR about? You're having Aadhaar, you're having NPR, why are you duplicating? Everything will be there. I mean, that was the question. In answer to that, the Home Ministry replied saying that the NPR is being conducted, which will be the basis for the NRC. On the basis of the NPR, the NRC will be prepared. And that is way back in 2014. 10 times in Parliament it was clarified that the NRC will be on the basis of the NPR. Then of course, Mr. Amit Shah explained the chronology to all of us. And in that chronology, he said first first CIA, उसके बाद NPR आएगा, उसके आधार पर NRC बनेगी. और जिन जिन के नाम नहीं होंगे NRC में, इन घुसपैठियों को हम जो है भगा कर ले जाएंगे और उनको देश से बाहर कर देंगे. The logic of the termites, the concept of the termites, I'll come to it. Where does that logic come from? So the NPR is the one where you are not going to be told to fill any forms. Enumerator will come, ask you questions, note down your answers, and then one registrar who will be appointed by the government will decide whether your answers are genuine or not. And if he thinks they are not genuine, then you are marked as D category, that is doubtful citizenship. NRC, all the D category names will not be there. So they won't do any NRC, there's no need. Once NPR is done, there's no need of an NRC because those who are left out, the doubtful people will be left out of the NRC. So that is where If you want your name to be entered into the NRC, you will have to go around producing your documents. That's why I say when NPR, when they come to ask you the question, they'll come to ask you the question along with the census. Answer the census questions, but not the NPR. You know the census questions what they are because they'll be circulated. And other than that, don't answer any questions. जवाब नहीं देंगे NPR के लिए. NRC के लिए कागज नहीं दिखाएंगे. And that would be the slogans on the basis of which we'll have to work. And that is where this entire process comes in of dividing that these termites are the ones that have to be thrown out of the country. And who are the termites? All of us know. They're not, except for the Muslim minorities. Termites should be thrown out. And in order to justify that, they made the poor President of India yesterday, or day before yesterday, read out a speech prepared by the cabinet, where he reads out the text prepared by the cabinet, where he quotes Mahatma Gandhi and says we are doing CAA is exactly what Mahatma wanted us to do. And they quote Mahatma Gandhi, and here I have the actual quotation from the prayer address that Mahatma Gandhi gives in 1947, 48, the beginning of 48, where the entire quotation is completely different and is a completely fabricated quotation. I can read out. Here it says Hindus and Sikhs, what they claim, Mahatma said, Hindus and Sikhs of Pakistan who do not wish to live there can come to India. It is the duty of the government of India to ensure a normal life for them. Unquote. What does Gandhiji say? If we regard all the Muslims as fifth columnists, will not the Hindus and the Sikhs in Pakistan also be considered fifth columnists? That would not do. The Hindus and Sikhs staying there can come here by all means if they do not wish to continue staying there. In that case, it is the first duty of the Indian government to give them jobs and make their lives comfortable. But they cannot continue to stay there and become petty spies and work for us and not for Pakistan. See the meaning, the difference between what Gandhiji said and what the government is interpreting. And then what does Gandhiji go on to say? The Muslims have said they would be loyal to India. Let us trust them with all our heart. Let us remember the truth alone triumphs, never the untruth. Unquote. So this is asking us to trust the Muslims. And that is why the Muslims who have chosen in a larger number than the population of Pakistan then to stay back in the country chose because यहीं पर उनकी पैदाशी हुई, यहीं पर वो दफन होना चाहते हैं, यही उनका वतन है. And to them, you're raising a question mark of patriotism and say they are enemies or traitors of the country. We'll have to explain to Amit Shah Sahab and to the Prime Minister, जब हम की बात करते हैं, हमारा देश, हमारा भारत, ये हम का मतलब क्या है? हिंदू का ह और मुसलमान का म, ये दोनों जब मिलता है तभी हम बनता है, तभी हम देश बनते हैं, तभी अपना भारत बनता है. And this is what they want to destroy it for, because this is part of a vision. When people were asking, including Supriya was asking now, when emergency, comparison to emergency and now, I said this is worse than emergency. The reason why I'm saying that is, in emergency you at least had people who are political leaders who are associated with the freedom movement. Today, for the first time, you have a set of people who have got nothing to do with the freedom movement, in fact had actually not participated in the freedom movement, even if they were alive, which belonged to that stream. Through the freedom movement, the three streams of visions emerged. The first, the one was the dominant vision, that of the Congress leadership then, and correctly. The country of our diversity cannot be kept united. And people can't be kept united unless we have a secular democratic political structure. Correct? But the communists and the left then said, but we cannot stop there. You'll have to proceed to convert the political independence of our country into the economic independence of our people, which is what Bhagat Singh was also talking about. And to convert that, you'll have to start moving towards socialism. That's why many aspects in the constitution on the question of economics, self-reliance, etc., all of this were brought in. These were two visions. not antagonistic, but differing. A third antagonistic vision was born, which had a twin expression that the character of independent India would be determined by the religious affiliation of its people. And from this emerged the two-nation theory. The first votary of the two-nation theory was Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, who more than a year before, as the president of the Hindu Mahasabha then, Savarkar had said, in India there exist two nations, a Muslim nation and a Hindu nation. A year or a year and a half later, as the president of the Muslim League, Jinnah, in his presidential address says, I agree with Savarkar, there are two nations, an Islamic nation and a Muslim nation. And the two-nation theory unfortunately led to the partition of the country. The problem that came up is that if they could have an Islamic nation in Pakistan, why are we not a Hindu Rashtra of the RSS variety? But the leadership of our national movement refused it. They said, recognizing India's reality and diversity, they said it can only be a secular democratic republic. And it was that rejection of that Hindu Rashtra thing was found expression in the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi. And that is where they think about it, but then the issue didn't stop there. Since then till now, the relentless effort is to convert the secular democratic republic into their rabidly intolerant, theocratic, fascistic vision of a Hindutva Rashtra as it exists today. And that is the battle that is unfolding today. So these are not isolated incidents. CAA, 370, Ayodhya, or for that matter, all this about the atmosphere of hate and violence, etc. So all this is part of the larger jigsaw puzzle, and in that larger jigsaw puzzle, we will have to understand that this is happening, and unless all of us come together and fight it out. And Supriya is right, it's not a question of political parties alone. It's not a question of electoral alliances. It's a question of people's unity. Now that is what is happening today. Wherever you go, at least at this point of time, there will be at least more than 50 places in our country where protests are taking place against the CAA, NRC and the NPR. And what is the symbol? The tricolor. What is the pledge they are taking? The preamble of the Constitution. And it is this youth who's now drawing upon this to safeguard the fundamental foundations of our republic. That is under assault. So it's just not a question of government delivering or being efficient, but on what vision is this government moving? And in order to elicit international support for what they are doing, saying this is an internal matter, they are willing to offer for sale everything that is our national asset. Everything. It started sometime earlier when I said that you have, Prime Minister was there that day in the house when I was speaking once. And I said, sir, you are creating history because you've given a new slogan to India. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose had given us the slogan of Jai Hind. That day, the Prime Minister appeared on a colored advertisement in all the front pages of things, launching the the telecommunication company. So I said, from Jai Hind, you are converting India into Geo Hind. And that is what is today happening. If no other network is working properly, as well as the Geo does. But it's not only, that's only symbolic. But selling off your national assets to both Indian corporates and the others, when the actual solution is what? It's giving all these concessions to the corporates. When 1% of India's wealthy controls four times the assets of the bottom 70% of our population. This is the Indian reality. Instead of giving more concessions, use those monies for public investment, build our infrastructure, create jobs, and when our youth start spending their wages, then the closed factories will start opening up because demand will rise. The solution is there. But that's not the direction in which you go. So the point right now is that the chronology, if you want to understand, chronology is step by step to undermine this secular democratic constitution. And that is the chronology that is happening in the last 7 months, 370, Ayodhya, now CAA, now the NPR will begin 1st of April. And that is where, how do we face up to this? And to face up to this, the only way is a Gandhian civil disobedience movement. And that is exactly what is happening today. If you look at all these protest sites, there are no political leaders leading them. I'm glad there are no political leaders. And whom Modi, somebody commented from their side, saying that ये left पार्टियाँ, कांग्रेस पार्टियाँ और ये secular पार्टियाँ ये सब भड़का रहे लोगों को. तो मैं कहा ना हमें किसी को भड़काने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ रही है और ना किसी को लीडरशिप देने की जरूरत पड़ रही है. हम इन नौजवानों के पीछे पीछे चल रहे हैं. All the political parties, they are the ones who are taking the lead and doing it. And all strength to all of you in doing that, because you are the modern sipahis of modern India. You are India's future. What will be the future of India is what you will decide. So it is now the task for all of us to abolish this language of talking in terms of termites or goosepetia and things like that, and abolish this talk of hatred and divisions that are there between us, and to unite. And that is where you find in these protests the unity that has emerged between the Muslims and the non-Muslims. I mean, both Amit Shah and Modi keep saying that this is only Muslims are protesting. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if you go and look at any one of these protest actions. And therefore, they are faced up to assaults, they faced up to police repression, they faced up to attacks. The police, though, acting at their behest. Only place violence has taken place are the BJP ruled states and Delhi, where the police is under the BJP. Nowhere else has there been any violence. So the peaceful protests, and that is what we'll have to carry forward, and is exactly how it happened during the national movement. Gandhiji would give a call. There'd be no leadership mobilizing anywhere. People would respond on their own, and then that would become the national movement. And that is what we are seeing today. And that is what has to be strengthened. And that is why issues like the Mumbai Collective, and the various sort of people that are all coming together today from different points of view, different walks of life. And what has happened in Mumbai, what was unheard of some time ago, to have a non-BJP government with an ally of the BJP sitting with Supriya, and then both of them forming that government. I mean, it has been a sense of liberation. I mean, your Bollywood tells us that but for the fact that there is no BJP in the government today, the protests wouldn't have happened in Bombay the way they are happening. I mean, that sense of relief, just imagine if it can happen to you here, what would be the sense of relief in the country when we are able to succeed in doing this? And that is what, and we'll have to move towards. That is why we'll have to say firmly. And that's why I'd like to end with just asking you to respond to a slogan. The thing we'll have to say very clearly is we are determined. We are not violent. We are peacefully protesting our fundamental right. We'll continue to protest. For NPR, हम जवाब नहीं देंगे. For NRC, हम कागज नहीं दिखाएंगे. That will be our call. And that is what we'll have to mobilize. And then the slogan we'll have to give is, मोदी शाह सावधान, हम बचाएंगे संविधान. So please join me in giving this slogan. मोदी शाह सावधान, मोदी शाह सावधान, मोदी शाह सावधान. Thank you very much.